Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a seriously fascinating challenge. How do you accurately and responsibly document one of the most monumental events in human history, the Hijrah? We're going to be looking at a very specific, rigorously designed guide for scripting this incredible journey. You know, if you've ever wondered how educational documentaries actually bring profound historical and religious events to life on screen without, well, crossing the line into pure fiction, you are in exactly the right place. So, here's the big question. How do you script a monumental history like the Hijrah without inventing the details? When filmmakers or writers approach these epic historical events, the temptation is always there, right? To add a little dramatic flair, maybe put some words in a historical figure's mouth, or invent a suspenseful scene just to keep viewers hooked. But when dealing with foundational religious history involving the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that approach simply doesn't fly. The source material we're digging into today provides a definitive, rock-solid answer to this exact challenge. Okay, here's a quick roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the historically grounded approach, then we'll dive into Makkah and the pledges, followed by the plot, departure, and Thawr. After that, we'll track the arrival in Medina, examine its lasting impact and legacy, and finally break down the actual tools for authentic storytelling. Let's get into it. Section 1. The historically grounded approach, establishing the rules. Right off the bat, an educational script faces a pretty stark choice. It absolutely has to avoid fully dramatized narratives, invented dialogue, and those speculative what-if scenes. Instead, this methodology tells us we have to anchor the narrative strictly in the Quran and early Islamic sources. A really critical part of this approach for a documentary is transparency. It's about clearly distinguishing between firmly established historical accounts and those reports that came later. It's all about building absolute trust with the viewer through total rigor. Section 2. Makkah and the pledges, the catalyst. You know, you can't just start a documentary with people suddenly packing up and leaving their homes. You have to build the why. The script starts by painting the real historical context of Makkah, laying out the intense persecution that the early Muslim community was facing. This whole situation pivots at the first and second pledges of Aqaba, which ultimately culminates in the monumental decision to actually migrate. By stacking these established historical facts, the script creates its own natural, gripping drama. You literally don't need a single drop of fiction. Section 3. Plot, departure, and Thawr, the escape. Now, the tension in the narrative really peaks right about here. Before this journey can even get off the ground, the script has to address an immediate existential threat, the Quraysh's plan to prevent the migration altogether. By focusing the narrative lens on this historically documented plot, it naturally establishes the extreme stakes and just the sheer immense danger surrounding the departure. And that danger perfectly sets the stage for the physical escape itself, following a really tight sequential focus. It kicks off with a departure from Makkah, and then the narrative kind of slows down to document that intensely critical stay in the Cave of Thawr. The absolute silence of the cave, the terrifying proximity of the pursuers, these are all facts pulled straight from early sources. It just goes to show, true history is absolutely compelling enough on its own. Section 4. Arrival in Medina, the triumphant entry. So this timeline serves as the true narrative spine of the documentary. It gives the viewer a distinct spatial and temporal map to follow. We start with the immediate departure from Makkah on day 1, we hold that crazy tension in the Cave of Thawr through day 3, and then we trace the grueling journey toward Medina over the following week, culminating in the arrival at Quba and the final entry into Medina on day 14. It ensures the pacing matches the historical reality step by step. It gives you a crystal clear understanding of just how massive the scale of this migration actually was. Section 5. Lasting impact and legacy. A top-tier educational documentary doesn't just cut to black when the physical journey is over. The script intentionally dedicates a specific section to the lasting impact of the Hijrah on the world. I mean, this wasn't just a simple migration from point A to point B, right? It was a literal turning point in human civilization. This is where the narrative pans out, explaining the macro-level shifts that occurred and ensuring the viewer actually grasps its global, enduring weight. Section 6. Tools for authentic storytelling, the methodology. All right, so let's look at the precise toolkit for actually building this documentary. Step 1. Drafting careful, precise narration. That's then paired with historically appropriate visuals and AI video prompts to create a respectful atmosphere without relying on dramatization. Then, maps and timelines are brought in to ground the viewer spatially. All the while, the entire narrative is actively anchored by referencing relevant Quranic verses and authentic hadith. And honestly, the most important part, it requires total scholarly transparency. You explicitly note where historians might differ or where certain reports vary in strength. That's how you transform a standard video into an authoritative educational resource. The ultimate goal of all this methodology is crystal clear, as this quote sums up: to create an educational documentary that is respectful, informative, and completely avoids presenting speculative or invented details as historical fact. By adhering to these really strict guidelines, we protect the integrity of the historical accounts themselves. And honestly, it makes you wonder if we applied this exact level of rigorous, transparent, and unsensationalized methodology to all the historical media we consume today, how drastically would it change our understanding of the world's past? Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning how your history is scripted.